Hi guys, this is Lashette from Scarlet Moon Creations and I am back with a new video. This is my June wrap up where I talk about all of the books I read in the month of June and give you my reading stats for that month. Ideally, I would have 2 videos like I normally do, but I don't. I did randomly decide. I participated in both of these readathons in the past, but one was random because I didn't know what was happening until June 1st and then jumped in. It didn't do very great. But it is what it is. I enjoyed, I can't even fully say that. Half of what I read in the month of June I enjoyed. So let's start with the stats quickly and get that done. I'm using, as usual, Storygraph stats. And guys, it's hot. I do have my window closed because air quality is bad. It's not smoke, I don't think, but it's bad. And it's hot and humid. I have my fan on so I don't die because AC would be too much. So if you hear that, that's what you hear. And if you see the ribbons back here moving, that's because the fan is blowing them. Please. I'm not haunting. So, Storygraph stats. I read a total of 5 books this month. 1,510 pages, no hours read. None of those were audio books. The moods. The biggest mood was reflective, apparently. 3 books I read fit that. Interesting. Looking at the 3 books in that category, I'm like, huh. The second biggest category was funny. And I will definitely agree with that. The pacing, these were mostly fast-paced. The books were pretty short, honestly, all of them. And that's no surprise given the givens of my reading life lately. Number of pages, most of them were under 300 pages, hence the fast pace. And they were all fiction. I did not complete any of my nonfiction books this month. Alas. 3 were middle grade books and 3 were also graphic novels. Those same 3. And then the other 2 were romance. Otherwise, I'd say they were all contemporary. And 3 were by Black authors with Black main characters. 1 was by an Asian author with Asian main character. Like I said, 60% of these I read in print format and the other 40% ebook. So yeah, 3 physical, 2 ebooks. All of the books I read were in English. However, 1 was translated from Japanese. Last but not least, my ratings. My average rating was a 3.5 stars, and you're about to find out why. I read 1 1.5 star book. I read 1 2-star book, 1 4-star book, and 2 5-star books. So yeah, those were my ratings, and honestly the majority of my reading took place in the first week and a half of the month and then swiftly dived off. I was busy and I might make a discussion video eventually. I keep mentioning, like, but yeah. It just feels like, not that I'm slagging off, but don't ask me what British person or show I was watching or listening to lately was slagging. I just have put too much pressure on my reading and how I'm supposed to be reading and what I'm supposed to be reading, and it's stressing me out. I've done a couple of things to try to work on it. Like, I still read 5 books, so this shouldn't be a problem, and it's not like I didn't read anything else. It just... yeah. So that's a whole maybe other video if I find the time. Let's start with the 2 readathons I participated in. Graphicsathon. Yes, it is Graphicsathon round 9. It's a month-long readathon. The hosts are Allison, Becca, Beck, Allie, and Howling Libraries. And basically it's to read anything with graphics. So graphic novels, comic books, manga, manhwa, webtoons, or web novels, that kind of thing. There were prompts, but as usual, I don't usually pay attention to those. Especially since, particularly this round, none of the graphic reading material I had or was interested in reading fit any of the prompts except maybe the last 2. It was very fantasy battle heavy prompts, and yeah, I was reading mostly contemporary stuff. So that being said, the other readathon I participated in was the Tower Readathon 2023, and I did the 2021, which was the original one, and I decided to stick with Deja's book world and her team again this time, and it was Team Cups. The Tarot Readathon is where you take tarot cards and use them as prompts for what books you read. They come up with the list of prompts. You join a team, cups, swords, wands, coins, or pentacles, and you gain your team points for every book you finish. There was also the weekly major prompts that were posted weekly, and you would get your team even more points if you did those. I don't think I managed to complete any of the major prompts. Just they were dropping them on Thursdays to Thursday. It didn't work out for me. I would always finish a book after Thursday. Those I did pick prompts for. I went through all the books I currently had out from the library or whatever, and I figured out what tarot cards they could fit for, and whatever I read fit for a tarot prompt, and that worked out quite well. So as I talk about the books, I will tell you which prompts I've read them for. So let's get started talking about those books. So the first book I read was New Kid by Jerry Craft. This is a graphic novel, so it fit for Graphicsathon. And for the Tarot Readathon, this was the Tower book, okay, so the Tower prompt was to read a book where a character is going through a major change. Yes. And in this, we are following Jordan, who is going to a new school for the first time. He lives in Harlem, New York, and he got into this very exclusive school in the Bronx, Riverdale. Traveling to the school is further. He's also one of the few, less than a handful, black kids in the school, and yeah, it's a major change. He also wanted to go to an art school because he likes to draw comics. So this is not that school. His parents want him to give it a shot until he finishes basically middle school level, and then decide whether he's going to continue at this elite school or switch to an art school for his high school years. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 stars. It was off to a good start. This is one of the 3 books. They're not a series, I guess. They're kind of a standalones, but they tie together. I don't know. Anyway, this is book 1 of the actually May reads for the Realm of Comics book club pick. And I wasn't sure at first. It doesn't become clear exactly where he's going to school, what section of the Bronx, but I had I was pretty sure, and then it becomes clear in the next book, so that's why I mentioned Riverdale. Alright, so I just have to put this out here, right? There's a lot of microaggressions this kid is dealing with, and you know, he's trying to figure this out, and I think he's 11? Yeah, I think he's 11, going on 12, and you know, his parents are divided about whether he should go to this, whether it's better for him to go to this more elite school, even dealing with the microaggressions, like it would be better for him and his achievements in the long run, or if he should, you know, follow his heart and what he likes to do, which is basically an art, which doesn't necessarily mean that he will have a solid future. The arts are more difficult in general, and then for minorities even more so, to make a good living in. And then he's coming from a poor minority neighborhood and going to this very rich white neighborhood in the Bronx, which in general most people don't think the Bronx and think, oh, you know, rich white neighborhood, but there is a section of the Bronx called Riverdale, a neighborhood where it is very, very, very elitist, to the point where most of the people that live there, I cannot say all of them, but most of the people that live there, that grow up there, that move there, don't like to say that they live in the Bronx. They say they live in Riverdale to separate themselves. This is something that I literally have dealt with. And it's bullshit. You live in the Bronx. Yes, you live in the neighborhood of Riverdale, but you still live in the Bronx. There's no separation whatsoever. You're just la-di-da driving along and suddenly you're in a very fancy neighborhood. I did not grow up with this type of situation. I think that some people who did not know me very well probably thought I did. Didn't quite go through this, but I know many people did. This is funny. The characters are full and understandable. The fact that these black kids have to go through this and they're consciously aware of it is sad, but it's reality. And when we were talking in the live show about it, it's like the kids were much nicer than us adults would be, but they haven't gone through as much. They haven't been as traumatized, and they don't have the build up of decades of micro and macro aggressions and racism and sexism and prejudice, classism, all of that, that us as adults do. So they get upset, but not as upset as us adults do. And, you know, they're more forgiving to the classmates and more willing to understand each other. Jordan is a cutie, and he struggles a little bit here in the beginning because this is all brand new. There are some really racist teachers in here, and again, it's not like, you know, they want him to go to cotton fields or whatever. Nobody's beating him up or anything like that, but there's a lot of assumptions because he is black that this is certain things that he will like and he won't like, that he will do and he won't do. And some of the ways that they talk to him or to each other, not about him necessarily, but, you know, about minorities, is very like, y'all are way out of pocket, and there's children around you that can hear you. Like, what the hell? So yeah, 5 stars. I just really enjoyed it. The art style is also great. It's very comic book like, but not too crazy, and everybody has a distinctness. I do really enjoy the little stories within a story, where you get to see some of his comic drawing. 5 stars, like, so great, so great. I feel like I over-talked that because what am I going to say about the next 2 books? Okay, so the next book I finished in the month was the first of the 2 ebooks I read. 5 centimeters per second by Makoto Shinkai, and I gave this 1.5 stars because what the hell did I read? This was, I think it was the June pick for the BTS book club. If it wasn't June, it was definitely May. I didn't get to join in on the live discussion, but this is apparently based on a award-winning film, and so this is the second manga that I've read that's based on a film, and I haven't watched it yet, unlike the previous one. I can see I probably would have enjoyed it a little more if I had watched the movie. I think the art style was really great, and that's the defining part of it. I can see how it would have been amazing as anime, but this story, I was like, what was the point? We're going back to a time that's, you know, before really cell phones and the internet, and we've got these 2 school students that one kind of moves to town. I think there was something happened. This kid moves to town with his family, and they're like in this kind of beach town. He's kind of a loner, and there's a girl, and she's kind of a loner, but I forget how they wind up sort of becoming friends, and then sort of there's a whole will they won't they type of thing. And I think this was like middle school-ish, right? They just start connecting or whatever, and then she winds up having to move away, and they're young enough to not really understand their emotions and how they're feeling for each other. So when she tells him like that she's moving, he's, you know, I guess kind of devastated, but not understanding exactly why. And they kind of make this promise to each other that they will keep in touch, they'll call each other, and they'll write letters or whatever. But it doesn't really happen. She moves away, and life goes on. I think they call each other once or twice. They write letters once, and that's it. We're following mostly the guy, and he's still pining a little bit. I think he moves on to, I think it's high school at that point. He's even more of a loner than he was before, but still, you know, going about his life, but feeling kind of the doldrums the whole time. He finds out, I guess, she's moving yet again with her family, and they're going to be even further away, and so he's like, I'm gonna come and meet you before you go too far away and it becomes impossible for us to see each other, right? So they haven't seen each other in a while. It takes this long ass train trip, which involved multiple trains, and then a snowstorm starts and all that stuff. They meet up or whatever, and it was very cute, but again, nothing really happens. And then, because I don't think they're still not fully understanding how they feel about each other. I think he's starting to get it, and he almost says something, but then chickens out just as they part ways, like the train doors close and all that stuff. For some reason, I think they lose each other's contact information, like addresses or whatever, right? So they fall out of contact. Next thing you know, he's a grown up, and he's still like low-key depressed about life. He has no purpose, it seems like, and it seems like he gets into relationships, like romantic relationships, out of habit, but not really feeling. Like he's searching for feeling, but there's none really there. It's a very reflective book that goes nowhere. There's another woman who comes in, and turns out like they're dating like as adults for 5 years or something like that. Then like she's like her parents are coming over to drop something off, and she wants him to meet her parents, and he's like, oh, I don't know about that, he just lost his job, and so he's panicking, and she doesn't get it. She's upset, and there's a whole conversation, and he takes her to where he met that girl on the train, and it's just like trying to explain, because what happens is she realizes she doesn't really know this guy as well as she thought. Like, he doesn't express himself and how he's feeling, and so he looks pretty placid, but that's because honestly I think he was just depressed all his time. And then there's another female character that also grew up with him and when he was a kid, and the other young girl, and she's been liking him forever, even though he moved away and went to Tokyo, and all of that stuff. And she's a surfer, and it's just why does this exist? Again, it's like a slice of life contemporary thing. It goes nowhere. Nobody gets together. It ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger with the surfer girl like, I'm gonna move to Tokyo thing, and I'm like, oh, maybe that will. No. Dude doesn't have a change of character. There's no character development with him. It's just like, why was this written? Why do we care? That's why I said maybe the movie would have been better. But what I read was boring. 1.5 stars. And the fact that it was a manga is the only reason I continued. I finished it, because otherwise, the version I read had, I guess, volumes 1 and 2 combined into it. So I read the whole story. I double checked, because I was like, maybe. No, I did. This was almost 500 pages of blah. But it fit for Graphicsathon. For the Tarot Readathon, it was for the 3 of Cups prompt. Not this card, because I didn't use this deck. But the 3 of Cups prompt was a book featuring friendship. And it did. Yeah. If you care, for the Tarot Readathon, I used the Good Tarot by Colette Baron Reed. I don't read with this very often. But yeah, that's the tarot card for new kid. And 3 of Cups. This deck uses the 4 elements instead of cups. It's water, so there's that 3 of water card. The next book I finished was the next book for the Realm of Comics Book Club picks that month. Class Act, companion to the Newbery Medal winner, New Kid, by Jerry Craft. This one is covered with that library plastic. It's hardcover. So the story continues. This one I rated 4 stars. We're in the same world. We have the same characters. We're not focused on Jordan's point of view, though. This is, I think, this is mostly from Drew's point of view. Drew is another black kid at that school in Riverdale, the elite school in Riverdale, who has been there a little longer than Jordan, and dealing with similar yet different issues. They're in the 8th grade. Jordan has both of his parents who are both working and taking care of him in Harlem. Drew is coming from further away, and he lives with his grandmother, who is not always well and cannot always work. So slightly different family circumstances, but still a black kid, and quite honestly a darker skinned black kid, which comes up in this. He has to deal with, like I said, similar but different issues to Jordan because of this. There's a lot of tokenism. There's a lot of questioning his future in this as well. This fulfilled the star card prompt, which was to read a graphic novel or manga. and that's a star card in this deck. So yeah, another graphic novel. What detracted for me was this was more all over the place. So there are several like chapters in each of these novels, right? In the previous one and then the one after this, there's a narrative, a plot narrative that is throughout all of the chapters in the book. With this one, it felt like we jumped all over the place, and I was quite confused when that happened. It was like one chapter we focus on this, and this chapter we focus on that, and that chapter we focus on that, and then the last two chapters were what the synopsis was talking about. Though things happen linearly, time-wise, right, and some things in the first three chapters affected, I guess, Jordan's decisions and thoughts. In the last two chapters, it didn't flow as well, and that's all it is. I guess also it helps. It's appropriate because Drew is not Jordan. He's not, a storyteller. And so people who are not don't, I guess, think about the connecting parts of a story. Like me. Still great, just a little less so. And we're not like beating a dead horse with things going on. There is character development for everyone, though maybe not most of the teachers, but you can't win them all. Drew is really trying to like not be a token, but not complain too much so that he'll get kicked out for being an angry black man or angry black kid. And I feel that's so hard. Like, so hard. Oh yeah, 4 stars. I quite enjoyed it. Whoop. The next book I read was the last of the books for the Realm of Comic Book Club School Trip by Jerry Craft, companion novel to New Kid and Class Act. And in this one, they go on a school trip, and it's wow. We kind of spread things out culturally in Class Act. One of their friends is a white boy who's from a very privileged background, who is open to learning and respectful and whatnot, even though his family isn't quite. So anyway, the school takes him on a trip. They somehow figured out how they can go, and they wind up going to Paris. And again, it's an elite school, many of them from various cultural backgrounds, and it's basically just a sightseeing type of thing. There's no like specific educational point other than being exposed to other cultures and peoples and things like that, which is educational in and of itself. The thing is, some of the older students mess up the tickets, and the teachers who were the original assigned chaperones for each school trip, because other students are going to different places, they wind up getting mixed up, and they don't find out. Nobody finds out until they're looking at their tickets the day of, and it's like, oh crap, right? So these guys and some of their other classmates wind up going to Paris with the only black teacher that I saw, and one of the most prejudiced teachers they have. But in that, I'm hip and liberal type white teacher. They think they know what they're even worth. That kind. So they wind up on this trip, and then because they were not the original teachers sent, the credit card, they don't have the credit card in their name, and they can't pay for anything. So one of their friends, who is from a privileged background and black, winds up paying for pretty much everything on the trip. The one white kid student who has been an asshole all 3 books really gets a talking to. He learns a lesson from a Muslim student, actually. And I really appreciate it in this, her explaining to him several times in various ways the difference between humor and fun teasing among friends and bullying, because that is a thing I still struggle with to this day. Because I was bullied so badly, and there was a physical element to that, but it was mostly verbal and I guess emotional. uh, I struggle to identify the difference, and I'm overly cautious when joking with my friends, who the closest of whom I've known for 2 decades. I appreciated seeing that. I know some people in the live show were talking about how they felt like it's a little too preachy, not just that, but other sections. And sometimes you have to bring it down to that level. And I guess some of the, like, one of Ashley is a librarian, and other people in the chat have kids and things, or deal with children, and it's like explaining that this is a book for kids, so that's appropriate to kind of explain or over explain or heavily explain. I appreciated it because, like I said, I still struggle to understand the difference and try not to get my feelings hurt over things that are not meant badly. I don't know, I've never talked about this with my friends, so I don't know if they realize this or not. And I mean, there's certain things like, we don't joke about just in general, but when we're talking about each other personally, but it's still somehow a sign of affection, and I still like grapple with that. Like, why is teasing a thing? And I do it too, and like I said, I'm overly cautious. I hold my tongue with a lot of things, even though I've known, like I said, people 20 years, and I'm like, but that sounds, or I say it with not enough confidence so that, it messes with the joke. Anyway, so there's that. There was kind of a redemption arc for the mean white boy who's not this kid. And yeah, no, we just gonna pretend that didn't happen. He has a long way to go. Some of the teachers, after their trip, kind of really realized they have been prejudiced, like the librarian. We also get, some more explanation for, or more of the other characters coming across and explaining, the problems that they have with the school and the privileges that majority of their classmates deal with. So we have Hispanic people, we have Muslim people, we have Asian people. There are white people, but they're not. They don't have money like that, and all of these things come up in this book. But it's still lighthearted. It's still kid appropriate. It's still, they have hope for the future, and there's lessons learned, and they try new things. And I like how, like, they bring it back to their neighborhoods, and it's like, dude, you should travel too. And we're still gonna be friends with the kids we grew up with, even though we're going to this elite school. Also, we kind of think this is the end of the series. That's not a series, because Jordan makes his decision about whether he is going to stay at this elite school or go to an art school like he wanted to originally. So this might be the end. But yeah, 5 stars. I don't feel like I've properly explained these, because it's just kids living their regular lives, and it just so happens that their regular lives include a lot of prejudices and things that they have to figure out how to navigate. This book actually fit, obviously, Graphicsathon, but also for Tarot Readathon, it was the Justice card. Justice was to read a book that addresses a social issue, and this definitely did. Specifically, teasing, I think, was the big one. Teasing / bullying, and more so the racial prejudice and stereotypes of all kinds. So the last book I finished was the last ebook, and y'all, it was not great. It was better than the previous one, but it was not great. This, I read Gunner, book 1 in the Wolf Elite series by Sedona Venice. So this I had in my book, in my Nook app from Barnes & Nobles, and that leads me to think, honestly, I prefer Nook over Kindle, just in general, but you can't always get what you want. So when free book options come my way and they're digital and I can choose my format, I usually choose something that can be read on the Nook and other things, because that's another thing that's irritating. Kindle books cannot be read on any other platform, and if I so decide to read on something else, I want that option to do so. This being in my Nook tells me this was probably a free book from one of those emails I get from BookBub, which gives you tells you about discounts on books, ebooks, and maybe audiobooks too, I don't know, on the daily. It's like a wolf shifter paranormal romance. I was like, okay, I like those. You know I like those. Paranormal romance / urban fantasy is my favorite subgenre. So I was feeling like I wanted romance. The other romance book I had picked up was a little too serious for me. So I was like, let me see what else I got. And I was like, okay, let me try this. And I rated this 2 stars. First of all, it was so short. And I'm like, this is not a novella. This is book 1, not 0.5. And oh, Jesus, I'm not reading any more of this. Basically, we're following Gunner, who was recently, I guess, honorably discharged from armed services. He and his team were in a foreign country doing whatever they do in the forest or the jungle, and unbeknownst to them, there were werewolves, and those who didn't die got bit, and most of them died. So obviously, you know, this is totally weird and don't know what to do. So yeah, they can't exactly 100% hide that they're not human anymore. So they all just, I guess, opt for the discharge option. So he's trying to, you know, restart his life. He winds up going to New York City to live with a friend and his wife. They don't know that he's a wolf shifter. He's living on the low. One day he goes to a club and he meets this woman. They hit it off. They go back to her place. They have sex. And then he has, I think, work the next day, so he gets up and leaves, or she leaves, or something like that, right? They go their separate ways, and then they start, I guess, feeling a certain type of way. They're feeling off. She is in this high-key abusive relationship with another shifter. She is a shifter herself, but she is natural born, whereas Gunner was bit. So there's some kind of difference I don't really understand. And the story goes from there, because she's with this guy, like I said, who's abusive, but she's, you know, with him for reasons. And Gunner is new to the city, new to being a werewolf, and all the dynamics of that. It wraps up pretty quickly, to be perfectly honest. And I was just like, the sex is good, I guess. They had sex twice. It's not magical. I guess this could be erotica. But yeah, I gave it 2 stars. And don't have much else to say. I probably said entirely too much about what the story is, for it was only 128 pages. But what can you do, guys? This book fit the 5 of Pentacles or 5 of Earth in this deck prompt. Read a book that you don't think will be a 5-star read, which I didn't, but you still want to read it anyway. I was curious. That's why I downloaded it when I did, and I'm glad that's over and done with. So that was the books that I read this month. Did you participate in the Tarot Readathon or Graphicsathon? This last book did not count for Graphicsathon because it was just regular text, no images. So I read 4 books for Graphicsathon and 5 for the Tarot Readathon.